house rule. This rule basically meant that if there is a working or healthy man in the house, the government can't help you. And they would go as far as to send welfare workers to visit the homes without warning to check if a man was present. If they found any evidence whatsoever, families lost their welfare benefits. Over the years, the welfare state started dissolving the family structure, slowly but surely. A man who can't get a decent job and provide a substantial income suddenly believes that his family is better off without him.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode here on The Bridge Reacts, and I am your host on this lovely Sunday. I'm not feeling that great, don't look that great. We're still doing it. Marcus, thank you for stopping by to see another episode here on The Bridge. We're talking about, bridging the gap between men and women, trying to encourage long-lasting relationships, marriages, togetherness, stronger working class, so we can have a better community, right? It all starts with the family unit. If you like what we talk about here on the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button, and notification bell as well. Welcome to the channel, and a big shout out to all the new subscribers, at least 15 new subscribers since the last couple videos. So welcome to the channel once again, and thank you for the engagement, everybody. We talked a little bit about things that impact us as the culture, the community, Black individuals and Black families. And I've said a few times where, hey, maybe we have to look within sometimes of things that we can do to be better and what we do to ourselves that affects the community and the family unit. But it's not always, of course, us. There are other forces that also have altered and have greatly affected us as people and our dynamics as family. So we're here to talk about that today. Outside forces such as the U.S. government and how it destroyed the Black family. It's a little documentary series on Black culture unlocked. So please check that out, and let's get straight to it.
Fathers have left home in order for their children to get meat and bread. There are so many dehumanizing elements in the welfare system that we are concerned about removing. Ultimately, we are concerned about a guaranteed annual income. And the other thing I think it is very necessary to say is that everybody's on welfare in this country. And when it comes to Black people and poor people, we just call it something else. When it's for white people and rich, we call it subsidy.
It's no secret, fatherless households are more common in the Black community. A survey from the American Consensus Institution revealed that 67% of Black children under 18 in the US live in homes without fathers. This is a stark contrast to white children, as only 24% of them live in fatherless homes. But it wasn't always like that. The Black families survived generations of open racism, widespread poverty, and slavery. They lived through segregation and violence, and strong family bonds used to be the norm.
The nuclear family, we took that very serious. We had Christian values at one point, and this was all after, slavery and like Jim Crow, and during Jim Crow too, we were pretty together back then as well. Something happened between then and now.
As of 1960, 2/3 of all Black American children were living with both parents. That declined over the years until only 1/3 were living with both parents in 1995. So it's not the legacy of slavery that destroys the African American family.
It's the legacy of the welfare state.
Between 1890 and 1950, the marriage rate was much higher among Black women than white women. A fraction of Black children lived in homes without their fathers. But everything changed with the expansion of the welfare state. It divided the household and created a dependency on welfare. This kind of reminds me of what President Reagan said.
I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
So, what happened? What's the mechanism?
Damn. I'm just gonna let the video play, but I mean, again, there are other forces. I'm not gonna try to downplay slavery, and there's not like an actual generational trauma from our ancestors. Like, that's still something that is within our being, still affects us to a degree, but you have to break that curse. You need to allow that to heal.
Here is a detailed look at how the welfare state played a role in the dissolving of the family structure over the years. People say that the breakdown of traditional family units, family structures, is a byproduct of Black poverty, not just because there is no man to support the family financially, but also because women tend to earn less than men on average. Of course, the connection between the two is there, but it goes deeper than that. Welfare was a mean little business. It was designed to get people by in a pinch. Public assistance programs, like welfare entitlements, have been a part of American culture since the 1940s. Unfortunately, like in many other aspects of government institutions, Black Americans were left out. In time, Black people could also get financial support, but it wasn't easy. Mothers who applied for checks had to let social workers inspect their homes to see if their conditions were suitable for welfare. These workers also had to make sure no man was living in the house. But even
Let's really unpack that for a second. Incentivizing our women to get paid from the government to make sure that there's no man in the household. And if we can have the argument and say, or the debate, the conversation, the dialogue, let's say the dialogue, what is the need for a father in the household? What is the need for a husband, the man in the household? What is the purpose? Because you can't say there's no need for one. That's preposterous. That's just, it's asinine to even think that, right? Just like we know that a woman is very important in the household, not just for, procreating or cooking, cleaning. It's a woman's perspective, woman's nature, very important for the household, and a mother nurture, feminine, all that stuff, right? It's great for the household. It is the embodiment of the inner space, and the woman's also making the house a home. So every part of the family unit is very important. But let's wrap it back up to, what is the man there for? Why are the women being incentivized to make sure that he's not there and raising the family without the man? What do you think that does to a community? What does that do to the family? What does that do to the working force? What does that do to the future generations of said community?
if they qualified for support, the amount they received was meager and not enough to build a stable life. In the early 1960s, welfare was not yet common, even in the most impoverished Black communities. In the decade that followed, the number of Black people on welfare went up by 169%. They further increased by 30% from 1970 to 1975. In 1972, New York City, almost 1 out of every 6 residents was on welfare. A major portion of these households were Black. Although Black people were only around a tenth of all Americans, they made up almost 50% of all welfare recipients by the late 70s. A recent UNICEF report.
Doesn't that seem like it's almost like targeting a specific community? Like, again, there are more whites than Blacks, but still it's like, if we make 50% of the welfare, that is very alarming.
Showed that many children under 18 in America struggle financially, and African American children are nearly 4 times more likely to be in poverty than white children. Though the number of families receiving cash assistance has decreased since 1996, child poverty rates for Black children in the US remain high. This outcome is not by accident. I studied the evolution of social welfare policies in the US from the New Deal to the 1996 reforms, and found that these policies have been discriminatory from the start, and a lot of people can confess to that. This led many Black families to fall into cultural and economic ruin. In a short period, healthy Black people started relying on government assistance to achieve some level of normalcy. But within the city slums, that normalcy was impossible to get. Black children barely knew their fathers, and most were raised by unemployed and unmarried mothers stuck in a cycle of poverty and modest paychecks. This marked a significant shift in Black American history. The consequences were severe for the next generation. Let's start with the Social Security Act of 1935. It was introduced during Franklin Roosevelt's administration. It was designed to create the safety net in the country, safeguarding families from losing their income. It was viewed as a significant part of New Deal reform and paved the way for federal protections in the future, such as the Affordable Care Act and Medicare. This policy had 2 main parts. The first part had social insurance programs that provided financial support to dependents of deceased or incapacitated workers, and Social Security for retired older Americans. The second part comprised means-tested public assistance programs, initially known as Aid to Dependent Children, and later renamed Aid to Families with Dependent Children in 1962 under the Kennedy administration. Ideally, it was believed that as the overall quality of life in the country improved, more families could support themselves without needing financial assistance from the ADC program. Eventually, the ADC program would become unnecessary and gradually phase out on its own. But this posed a major problem for Black Americans. Like any other component of the New Deal, the origins of the Social Security Act were deeply rooted in racism. During the 1930s and 1940s, Black people—
There are other things that are also contributing to, the dysfunction in our community that were sold to us. I mean, we can talk about and make a whole nother video about Planned Parenthood. I don't know if we're ready for that conversation just yet, but it's coming. We're not here to leave anything out of the conversation. We're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly here on the bridge. And Planned Parenthood is actually definitely one of those things. Big reason for our demise as well. Planned towards us as a community, just like the welfare stuff, man. It was on purpose.
People had to deal with widespread racial discrimination in the workplace. They held low-paying jobs, often paid in cash and off the books. This made them ineligible for social insurance programs. The ADC program was an extension of state-run programs that supported widowed mothers, but mostly benefited white widows. The states decided eligibility and need, and since the separate but equal doctrine was in place, blacks were still excluded from fully participating. Jim Crow laws and the separate but equal doctrine led to a system with different services for whites and blacks. But as we all know by now, they were far from equal. States made efforts to cut down ADC enrollment and costs. They proposed residency requirements to prevent blacks from the South from qualifying for the program. In 1935, there was a hearing on a bill, and the NAACP, an organization that fights for civil rights, expressed their concerns. Southern politicians wanted to exclude agricultural and domestic workers from the bill. This meant that many black workers couldn't get the support they needed. This exclusion would particularly affect black sharecroppers and cash tenants, who were already struggling to make ends meet. Even though the NAACP was highly against it, the Social Security Act was approved. That's why 65% of African Americans nationwide were not eligible for benefits, and an even larger percentage of these black families in the South were excluded from the program. In the 1950s and 60s, things got even worse for black families. Welfare checks incentivized single mother households, and there was one rule that ruined it all: the man in the house rule. Black families have long been the victims of income inequality and bad government policies. The irony, of course, is that conservatives pushed black mothers to break their families to get welfare. Before 1968, many states and
I need to do more research on that. Conservatives push more for this? Because from my knowledge, a lot of these things that broke up the family unit were actually more on the liberal side. But I guess we can, editing Marcus, you can put something in for that. And people in the comment section, viewers, please let me know. Let's go ahead and educate ourselves, right?
administrative agencies created and enforced the man in the
Because to be conservative, that means you believe in conservative values. Conservative values, man in the household, woman there as well, raising the children, nuclear family. That's conservative. It's just like saying religious beliefs are more conservative. And religious beliefs, they believe in family. They believe in people being together. So how would conservative beliefs want the man out of the house? I don't understand that, but we'll figure that out.
Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s.
house rule. This rule basically meant that if there is a working or healthy man in the house, the government can't help you. And they would go as far as to send welfare workers to visit the homes without warning to check if a man was present. If they found any evidence whatsoever, families lost their welfare benefits. Over the years, the welfare state started dissolving the family structure, slowly but surely. A man who can't get a decent job and provide a substantial income suddenly believes that his family is better off without him. So, if a man were to lose his job, he literally had to leave the house so his children could get government surplus peanut butter, beans, and cheese. On the other hand, if either the woman or the man, or both, were irresponsible, they faced no consequences for their actions, and it was the taxpayers who ended up paying for it. These things aren't exactly designed to keep the marriage intact. They are meant to divide people. The harm done to the children was massive. Many children experienced the hurt from broken families at such a young age. In 1960, just 33% of black American children didn't live with two parents, but by 1988, that rate went up to 61%. In that time, the proportion of black children born to single mothers rose from 23% to more than 60%. This is exactly why we can't judge government policies based on their ideals, but based on their results. And these results, well, left a ton of households fatherless. I mean, think about it. What would the result have been if this welfare policy had required the opposite of that? That both parents live in the same home and care for their children to receive government assistance.
And instead of having that man in the house rule or act or whatever policy, you flip it, keep the same name, but make sure there is a man in the house. What other reason would you, let's get to my final thoughts. Why would you want to incentivize this other than with the agenda to make sure that you are destroying a certain community? And I mean, we've said this time and time again. We should know this by now in 2024. That we can't really trust the government. We can't rely on the government. So it's like if we're not wanting to trust or rely on the government, then we need to work on ourselves and build ourselves up and stay together. That's kind of the whole point of the episode, the whole point of the channel, the whole point of our existence. We should work together, and we should build our families, our communities together, and don't allow other outside forces to incentivize. And I know back then there were extreme times, just like they're becoming extreme times now, but it's just like the evils of things that we are so ignorant to, and things that I'm very ignorant to. I don't know everything. Still learning, just like I don't know the thing from earlier when we were talking about apparently conservatives allegedly were the reason why this was set into place. It's just it's disheartening, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. I want you guys to tell me your thoughts on what else you think contributed to this, where we're at now, why there's such a huge polarizing dispute about how men are and women are in the community, how some women might view men in the community, how men view women, why we are in this pickle where we're in now when it comes to the dysfunction of the family unit and welfare, Planned Parenthood. We're gonna make a video about that soon, eventually as well. But just those outside forces who are truly attacking us. It's not all just on us at the end of the day. There are things that we can address, that we can control, but there are outside forces too that, I mean, they're set in place to destroy us. But it's up to us to get back up and really build ourselves back up so we can be successful again. Because we were real close. We were real close. We had that family unit, and it's not too far to get back to that, man. It's possible. It really is, and that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. I'd imagine that's why you clicked the video. You might also believe in that. So just give me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Guys, take care of yourselves. If you're sick, take some medicine, natural remedies, some tea, not, government assistance or any kind of BS. Don't put that in your body. But until the next episode, I'll see you guys. Thank you so much again for engaging to The Bridge, checking us out and seeing all our videos and being a part of this. Really appreciate that. And see you.